Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. I'm your host, as always, Mike, and today for episode, I think we're on 41, we're going to be breaking down UFC 282. Today, I'm joined by my guy, Liam from Liam Picks Fights, one of the best in the game, easily. Liam, what's up, brother? How are you, man? How do you feel about this card?
What's going on, my man? I feel like review standard, but I also feel like it's a pretty balanced card. There's some good fights on the prelims. There's some fun action fights. It should be a fun watch, but is it worth your $65 and the ESPN Plus subscription? You know, that's not for me to decide, but doesn't always feel like it.
Liam, just a heads up, either you're lagging or I'm lagging just a tiny bit. So if it's me, just let me know.
You got it. And I'll try and plug in my wired connection, see if that makes it better.
Word. But all right, we can jump right into it. We've got a 13 fight card. For a second, it was almost 12, but looks like they got Ponzi a fight. Should be an interesting one. But we can jump right in. We've got two guys making their UFC debut. We got Cameran Saaiman versus Steven Koslow. Cameran is 6-0, undefeated as a pro, 21 years old. He's 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. And he trains with Dricus du Plessis, who we're going to talk about later over at Team CIT. It's a South African camp. I'm not sure what other bodies they have there, if there's someone his size, but decent camp. On the other side, Koslow, he's 6-0, undefeated as a pro. 25 years old. He's 4 years older, 5'7". He's 1 inch shorter. Do not have a reach for the guy, and I've got him at 10th Planet Jacksonville. Liam, why don't you start us off, man?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Koslow. He wasn't a guy that was on my radar prior to this signing to the UFC. You know, whereas Cameran Saaiman just seems like a guy that the UFC would want to get behind. You mentioned the obvious connection here is teammates fighting on the main card, and, you know, Team CIT, pretty much the first South African representatives of note in the UFC. They say that what they bring to the table is that they just train MMA. You know, they have a unique developed style that is just for MMA purposes. So, you know, if they were to do a wrestling match, maybe they wouldn't win, but they feel like what they bring to the table is very effective combinations of the skills. And you see that in his finish rate. You know, he's a guy that can get knockouts and can also get submissions. Dricus du Plessis, same thing we see from him. So what I think, you know, Cameran impressed on the Contender Series. You know, I thought that was going to be a little bit of a tougher fight for him. Went out there and delivered the goods there. I think that Dana White likes him, right? So when they sign a guy that you've never heard of, that's got a bunch of quick wins on the regional scene that you can't really make a lot of information from, it seems like, you know, they got one guy they prefer to win here, but the line is, you know, measured out accordingly. It's like a 75% line. Both of these guys are UFC debutants. So you really want to trust somebody with your money at that kind of indication. Not for me, but I do think that he's probably going to win the fight. Also, you see sharp odds makers already at the -125 tag, over 50% indication that this fight's going to end inside the distance with Saaiman getting his hand raised. So I think that, you know, it might be a little bit of a setup fight.
So I'm hyped. We've got some disagreement literally right off the bat. I mean, look, I can't disagree strongly, right? There's like no tape on Koslow. There's literally one video I'm working with, and I faintly remember I've watched his tape before, but this was like months ago, and they've taken his stuff off all except one fight. So like I can only have like a half unit confidence. That's all I'm putting on this fight. But I like to think I've got a little bit more to work with on Saaiman than most others. I posted this today. Back when Saaiman was going to fight on the Contender Series, I bought the EFC membership so I can watch all their fights, because I couldn't find his fights anywhere else. It was only behind their like subscription service. So I paid for a membership there. I think it was like $10. And I watched his championship bout, the one before the Contender Series. And it was a 5-round fight. I believe it went to decision. And, you know, he lost those 2 rounds handedly. He lost them via grappling to a guy who I think is like his record's like 9-9, something like that. And he got out grappled strongly. And then he started to pick it up. He was able to keep it on the feet, started winning minutes, and ended up winning the fight. I think it was like, I don't remember the score, but I imagined it was 3-2. But either way, the issue was the grappling. And you kind of saw that again in the Kim fight, right? Because what did he do when he got sat on his ass? He started slapping Kim. He started slapping him. And I get the idea, right? Like you kind of feel like you can't get up, so you just want to annoy the guy because it could do something. But I can't imagine how much smacking him on the back really did. So it just kind of showed me he's not the best guy on the ground. He did have some sneaky sub attempts, similar to Dricus. He sometimes throws in the grappling. It's a little surprising. But like you mentioned, Liam, they say they're training MMA there, and you kind of see it. They got this funky style. But I think Koslow's live for a sub. All of his wins as a pro are sub wins in the first round. He also has like 5 submission wins in the amateur scene. I think he could find success on the ground here. I don't know what his striking looks like, so that's why I cannot put more than a half unit here. But because I know Saaiman has a deficiency and I know Koslow is strong there, what I've seen I do like. I took the shot there on the dog. I played him for 0.45 units at plus 235. You can get a better line now. It's plus 270. And then I played him by sub at plus 500 for just 0.1 units. Not a big stake, but a little bit on the dog. And we can move on to the next fight. This one has violence written all over it. We've got Daniel da Silva versus Vinicius Salvador. Da Silva is 11-4-0. He's 26 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach, and he's at a shoot box. Salvador on the other side is 14-4-0. He's don't have his age here. He's 5'7", 1 year older. He's got a 71-inch reach, 1-inch reach advantage. And he trains under Ribas's father, Amanda Ribas's father. So don't know much about his camp, but I imagine his BJJ is strong. And I'll start this one off. We know Vinicius from the Contender Series. He fought a guy from Australia. I'm blanking on his name now, but the guy wasn't very good. He did get the win. He looked all right. In the first
Rich, is that it?
Nah, I don't think his name was Rich. It was, I could tell you. I've got them up here. It was Shannon Ross.
Shannon Ross, excuse me. I think Shannon Rich is a jobber from back in the day in MMA history. God bless his soul.
All right. Liam, by the way, you're lagging just a tiny bit, I think.
I am not sure why, my man, but I will try and address it over here in the interim.
Hopefully it'll hold up. But yes, Salvador looked great in the first round. I don't love the loopy strikes. Never a fan of those. He's got a very, very funky style. You could tell he's using his length. He looked good, but then he slowed down. He did still get that knockout in the second round. But until that KO, I felt like it was Shannon Ross who was finding more success in round number 2. And we didn't get to see too much of his grappling either. Now, Daniel da Silva has been nothing but disappointing in the UFC. I think I've bet on him either all 3 times or 2 out of 3 of the times that he's fought and lost. The last one was Victor Altamirano. I think I played da Silva decision no action because I was very confident that Altamirano could not finish this guy. And he finished him in the first round. What I didn't remember was it was da Silva who got the first knockdown there, and it was actually him who looked really good until he got himself knocked out. That's kind of the theme in his fights, right? Against Little Figgy, took him down really clean and then got knee barred. Against Jeff Molina, took his back, looked pretty dangerous, then slowed down and got finished in the beginning of the second round. So I can't trust the guy with my money. I really, really want to because I don't think that highly of Salvador. He was a big underdog to Shannon Ross. I played him as the dog there just because I didn't think Shannon Ross was great either. But I think Daniel da Silva is good. He just can't seem to put it together in the UFC. Look, money's coming in on Salvador. If I get da Silva plus 200, I'll drop a half unit, but I'm not going to do anything other than that. Liam, what are you thinking for this one, man?
Yeah, I really I'm not a fan of da Silva. After the Jeff Molina fight, I bet him plus 150 there, and I saw enough. I was like, yeah, I'm not betting on this guy anymore. Just feel like he's too easy to finish to be at the UFC level, frankly. It's happened to him in a few different ways, and I had bet on Vinicius Salvador inside the distance at plus 333, and I bet on him to win by sub at like plus 1250 actually in that fight. He ended up knocking him out instead. But Vinicius, what I liked about him is that he's coming out of the Hebos camp, and they don't have a lot of talented fighters, right? I just tell you the truth, like this, looking through the roster, you don't see a lot of notable names, but what I did see is like the 2 stars of the camp are Hebos, who's a very quality fighter in the women's divisions, and then Vinicius. So it seems like they invest a lot of time, effort, energy into building up these 2 as prospects, and having Hebos's father in your corner This is somebody very good for jiu-jitsu purposes, especially. So I think people have slept on Amanda's jiu-jitsu in the UFC. She goes toe-to-toe with Mackenzie Dern, who's one of the best on the planet at women's jiu-jitsu, period. So I think, people maybe are underrating the jiu-jitsu portion here, because I do think he's going to have the advantage on the ground. And I think on the feet, it's going to be volatile. It's going to be competitive. But the guy who's got more finishes, more knockout power, and a little bit more danger factor, I think, is Vinicius. So I think Vinicius is going to finish this guy. But I haven't invested on the money line. I think the money line is probably not the way to go here. Vinicius Salvador has I think 100% finish rate in his career. So you're going to want to probably look for him inside the distance. So far, the under and the fight not to go the distance are 100%ers in Daniel Lacerda fights in the UFC.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure De Silva has actually never been to decision, and I think Salvador's been to it one time. Yeah, he's been to decision once, and he did lose that decision. The one thing that interested me, CT710, my guy brought it up here, plus 400 on goes the distance. Look, I totally understand why the line is there. I mean, we just said they've been to decision one time combined. But like he said, for flyweights plus 400, this reminds me of the line when Chris Curtis fought Rodolfo Vieira. Goes to decision was plus 385. I hit that just for funsies, and it did hit. I don't think this is going to hit, but it does have my attention at plus 400.
They both have the cardio of heavyweights.
That's a fact. They weigh 125 pounds, but fight like heavyweights. But we can move right along for this next one. Talk about people you can't trust. We've got Erik Silva versus TJ Brown. Erik Silva's 9-1-0. He's 35 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. And for his camp, I've got him at Fusion Excel. TJ Brown on the other side is 16-9-0, 32 years old. He's 3 years younger, 5'9". They're the same height, 73-inch reach. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's a Glory MMA guy, but I think he spent most of his camp here at Westside MMA, and that's why they didn't pull him from the card. Or they didn't pull him from the card because they knew they literally cannot.
He moved his ass over to Westside MMA after
quick,
he got the ring-a-ding-ding. There's pictures of him at Glory, I think in November.
Oh, so yeah, he flew right over to Arkansas afterwards. I do know the commentary has said he trains with Bryce Mitchell, who's over there as well. So, he's probably spending some time there. Either way.
He cross-trains for sure.
Word. Either way, I can't believe what Krause has caused, man. It's so crazy. One man has almost brought down the entire MMA gambling community. But, so, yeah, Liam, why don't you start us off for this fight, man?
Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned here, man, I'm not betting on TJ Brown in a UFC fight. That's just not something I do. Everybody else to each their own. But on the other hand here, you've got Erik Silva. If I get plus money, maybe I'm interested. He's old, coming in as a prospect in the UFC. So I don't think he's necessarily somebody you're going to invest in over and over again. But is this a winnable enough fight? Probably. Do I want to trust somebody, without that much regional tape, grappling at a high level against really competent opponents? That's a little bit harder to say. So for those reasons, it's probably just going to end up being a pass for me. But from a side perspective, I'm going to lean towards Silva. I think he's a more dangerous guy when this fight's on the feet. I think TJ Brown makes pretty silly mistakes sometimes in his fights, and he's got a lot going on outside of this fight. So we'll see how that all shakes out for him. God bless him and good luck. But I think Erik Silva gets the job done. I think there's a reason they brought this guy in despite his age. UFC doesn't do that a lot. So when they're bringing this guy in, maybe it's to have 2 fights and go 2 and out. But, I think when they're putting gone and back again. Sorry about that, man.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I thought I was talking to the mic. Yeah, you were frozen just for a sec. But yeah, I bet TJ Brown last time he fought against Shailan, and after that, I was like, "You're done, Mike. You're done." Because everybody was like, "Don't bet TJ Brown. It doesn't make sense at this line. He's not trustworthy." And I was like, "What are you guys talking about? Shailan's no good. He can beat him." Yeah, that bit me in the ass, didn't it? So when I originally saw the line, I saw Brown as a big underdog, and then I was just too busy. I didn't touch it. And now I look over and it's like even money. I was like, all right, Mike, you got to tape this. Taped it, ended up playing Brown at money line -110. I think I played 1.1 unit. It really just came down to an experience thing for me. Silva's 35 years old, like you mentioned. Kind of weird that they even signed him. I guess he was very impressive, but like even Dana said on the Contender Series, that episode, he was like, whoever made that matchup, like that was messed up because the guy he beat, Boynazarian, I get why they brought him. The guy had a kickboxing win over Giga Shikadze. They're probably going to try to go with that, kind of like Adesanya and Pereira on a much lower level. But the guy had no ground game and got destroyed immediately. So, like, yeah, it looked really good, but against who and how? You know, a guy with no grappling base, you just demolished him. I mean, I hope so, right? So, TJ Brown, in my opinion, is good. I think he has everything he needs. It's the fight IQ. The fight IQ is just extremely, extremely poor. He's shown that several times now. So it's like not like you can just say, oh, it was a one fight mistake. He does it all the time. That said, I'm making the same mistake once again. You know, they say madness is doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe I'm mad. Maybe I'm a genius. Maybe I'm both. But I played Brown. I played him for just 1.1 unit. We'll see what happens. I do think he can grind out Silva. The thing is, we have no idea what Silva's going to look like later on. There's very little tape on that, on how he'll look as the fight progresses, because he usually gets a very quick finish. So I do think Brown can probably win the fight as the fight goes on. I think his grappling is probably as good, even though it's very difficult to know with the competition that Silva's had. And the striking, again, it's hard to tell. I do think it's Brown, but Silva's looked pretty good. It's just against who. So can't be too confident on either side. Props to anyone who got Brown at plus 200. I think that was a good play. But at this point, yeah, it's definitely a questionable line, definitely a questionable fight, and we can move right along.
You want to know my opinion of TJ Brown? I bet Charles Rosa for half a unit on the money line against him.
Oh, wow. You really
a guy who literally can't buy a win in the UFC.
It's all right. I bet Charles Rosa against what's his name? Nathaniel Wood. I think it's even worse. I think that's even worse.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. We can move on, though. This one's really interesting, honestly. We've got Billy Q versus Alexander Herndandez. Quarantillo, 16, 4-0, 34 years old, 5'10" with the 70-inch reach, and he's training out of, let me see what I got for him. Gracie Tampa South Martial Arts. And then on the other side, we got Alexander Herndandez, 13, 5-0, 30 years old. He's 4 years younger, 5'9". He's 1 inch shorter, 72-inch reach. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's training at a Factory X Muay Thai. I'll start this one off. I mean, obviously, we got to mention the fact that Herndandez is coming down from 155 to 145. As it is, he never had a great cardio to begin with. So how's he going to look? We've got no idea. Honestly, I went into this one. I was fairly confident that I was just going to parlay the hell out of Quarantillo, play his money line, probably have like 5 units staked. That's what I originally wanted to do. And then I ran the tape, and like I remember Billy striking. It's hard to forget it. It's so loopy. He doesn't throw anything straight at all, almost never. And I hate that. But he kind of makes up for it with the output, the way he mixes it up. He still makes it work. He makes those combos work. But I just feel like I was watching, and I just feel like he's going to get hit a lot, especially in round number 1 when Herndandez still has that gas tank. I think he's going to be getting hit a lot. Is he going to get knocked out? I don't think so. But that's my concern, is he's just going to get beat up a little bit. But I think that even if this was at 155, I think Quarantillo would still probably have the better cardio and could still probably outwork Herndandez. And now coming down to 145, I mean, I'm very, very confident that Quarantillo is going to have a better cardio and have an ability to outwork him. So I'm probably still going to get to Billy Q. It's going to be a much smaller stake than I originally planned, probably nothing more than 2 units. But I do still think he's got all the tools he needs to win this fight. I just wish he'd throw a little bit more straight. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because Alex is like a physical powerhouse. You know, he's kind of just that fast twitch guy. But I think, you know, the weight cut, I don't really find very advisable for him, especially as he's getting a little bit older. He's clearly a pretty big guy. And a lot of the guys he's been knocking out are a little bit older, a little bit slower, you know, maybe not on the level. And I do think that Billy Q, you know, is just a very competent, on the level, you know, top 25 type featherweight. You know, I don't know that he's ever going to be a top 5 guy, but I feel like Billy Q is going to lurk around. I think I'm back.
Freezing up, my brother.
Sorry about that, but brutal. Can I get through a sentence here? I hope. I'll make it quick and just say that I think Billy Q, if he's able to get this fight to the ground, can exploit, Herndandez's gas tank and his vulnerability to the body triangle. Billy Q is a pretty long guy. He's been able to lock in that body triangle before. He's not a great finisher, but we saw against Herbert Burns. If you're a gasser, if you're ready to break.
We got some technical difficulties over here on the Couch Warrior podcast, guys. I don't know if Liam's frozen for you guys too. Okay, so Liam actually just messaged me and he said he left and he's coming back. It looks like he's still here. So let me try to throw him out. Okay. And then let's see what happens. Let me throw him out of here. Okay. So I kicked Liam out of the studio, and let's see if he joins back. Hopefully he's got Spectrum, so that kind of explains it. Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second. Let me talk to Liam. I'm also dying at this comment right here. Yo, leave Wiz alone, bro. They didn't even train together. All right. Yeah, I guess we can move on, and I'll start the next fight, and then hopefully Liam will hop on in with us again, and we'll keep going. So for this next fight, we've got Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. Curtis is 29-9-0. He is 35 years old, 5'10" with a 76-inch reach, and I believe he's out of Extreme Couture. Buckley on the other side is 15-5-0. He's 28 years old, still super young, 5'10" as well with a 76-inch reach as well. And for his camp, I honestly don't know where he's at. If anyone in the chat knows where Buckley trains at, please drop it. That would be very helpful. I don't know. It looks like he's been doing his own thing. I know that's kind of what he's always done, and that he spent some time at certain camps, but I'm not sure where he is right now. So for this fight, I did play the dog. I did play Buckley at plus 130 for 1 unit. And it just came down to this. I mean, we're looking at a striking battle, right? It's two guys who are going to strike. If anyone's going to grapple. Oh, Liam, you back, brother?
What's up, man? I hope this holds up better. I got my internet connection plugged in. Trying my best, but I apologize for the poor connection, man.
All good, brother. I know how Spectrum is. That was me last year, and all my streams were lagging. All my streams. But yeah,
I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. Don't worry.
But yeah, Liam, we just started Buckley and Curtis, so I'm just going through it real quick. I did say I'm on the Curtis side because I think we're going to be on the feet. I think very highly of Buckley. I know a lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. They don't think too highly of him. A lot of people thought he was a one-hit wonder with that kick on who was that? Karma? No. That was Impa Kasang and I. Man, Liam, where were you when that kick happened? I was on the couch with my boy, and we just grabbed each other and started screaming. That's never happened to me before, but
I had Impa Kasangana that night, so if you feel bad about your Rosa and Wood bet, I was like, all right. I thought things were going okay up until this point.
I mean, that was probably a better bet than Rosa against Wood. I'll say that. At least it looked close. But yeah, I think Buckley's got a lot of good things going for him. Very explosive, very powerful. I think his boxing's very good. He's a little limited, though. You know, he's not – it seems funny to say, but he's not throwing a lot of kicks. I know he got that fancy kick, but not throwing them often. He's mostly a striker with the hands. And like I said, he does wrestle sometimes. He's used it against like Abdul Razak Al Hassan, but I really don't think he's going to out-wrestle Chris Curtis. I mean, if Rodolfo Vieira couldn't get him down in 20-plus attempts, I really don't know what Buckley's going to do to take him down that he couldn't. And in the striking, my one concern having Curtis is I do think Buckley can possibly outwork him with the output. I do think Buckley is the far more active guy. Curtis kind of waits around and looks to counter strike, tries to pull you in and find that counter. That I don't love. I really prefer betting on guys who lead the exchanges, not the ones who are looking to counter. But I do think he's going to have a lot of opportunities here to catch Buckley. I do think he's going to find a lot of success on the feet. And I do favor him overall. I think he's a bit cleaner, a bit more defensively sound than Buckley is. And yeah, I think he should win this fight, but I think he could get outworked. So that's why we kept it to just one unit at plus 130. I think the line's a tiny bit better now on Curtis, plus 140. Money's coming back in and on Buckley, so who knows what you'll get. Liam, what do you think for this one, man?
Yeah, I've had a tough time getting Buckley correct. You know, I had Kevin Holland against him back in the day, and then I thought at the time that he was just a certified bum. Truthfully, I was like, this guy's no good. He gets knocked out all the time. He's not going to last long in the UFC. But I feel like he's really gotten a lot better, and he's shown up in a couple of big opportunities in his career. He's done better than I expected him to. I thought the Imavov fight would be a rout, and instead he showed up and really competed there in pretty inopportune circumstances. So I think overall, he's just impressed me with his body of work. I don't want to continue to stand against this guy. Chris Curtis, on the other hand, I did back him against Jack Hermanson, and that was a regrettable bet in hindsight, right? I think that what I learned in that fight is just that Chris Curtis can get frustrated and get to himself. You know, he can really lose a fight on his own accord. I do think he's a dangerous guy. I think he can knock out anybody. I had a bet on fight ends by knockout, him and Brendan Allen. I think it was like plus 380. That was a nice spot. So I've done okay in a couple of his fights, but overall just haven't always gotten on the right side. I ended up picking Brendan Allen by knockout there for a small amount. But anyway, I feel like this is the kind of fight where I think Buckley is going to get the job done by mixing in takedowns potentially. I thought that his wrestling has looked a lot better in his recent performances. But if he's not able to get takedowns, I feel like it's going to play out very close, and you're going to have value on the plus money because it's going to be a close decision, and Curtis could hurt him. You know, that's the one thing about Buckley that's always been a little suspect. I think his improving conditioning is what's helped him take shots better in some of these recent fights. So that's also something to keep an eye on. Chin is a lot related to fitness, and I feel like that's something that he's improved in his Instagram profile. You can see he's been putting in a lot of hard work. He's like going to the ground dead after his workouts, but I kind of like that. That's selling out and leaving nothing left to chance.
So before we move on, Liam, you broke off before you got to tell us. Do you have a side on Billy Q and Herndandez?
Haven't bet the fight yet, but I would look for some Billy Q by sub and some Billy Q ITD if I was to target that. I feel like he could potentially break him down the stretch, find that body triangle, and he's not a conventional finisher, but I think he could do it in this circumstance.
Does he have any UFC subs?
I'm not sure. I think he got a TKO versus Herbert, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm pulling it up now because
I mean, he could have submitted that guy too. That guy would have taken any road out of there. He would have taken a ticket to ride.
Wait, he didn't fight Herbert. He was supposed to.
Who did he fight? That completely fell apart.
No, I think you're thinking of Herbert and not Algio.
Oh yeah, you're so right, dude. I
Algio,
literally confused those guys in my mind. Oh my word.
Makes sense. They look
like the same guy.
It's one of those MMA twins, like Vandera and what's his name, Parisian. You're lagging a little bit.
That.
Tiny bit of lag on your side, Liam. You there, buddy?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. All right, so we'll move on to the next fight. Oh, let me get this out of my chat real quick. Hate those. Okay. So we've got Edmen Shabazyan versus Dalcha Lungiambula. Shabazyan is 11-3-0, 6'2", 25 years old with a 74-inch reach. And he's actually at Extreme Couture now, which I think is very dope. Dalcha is 11-5-0, 35 years old. He's 10 years older, 5'8". He is, what is that? That's 6 inches shorter, and he's got a 76-inch reach, so he's actually got the 2-inch reach advantage. And he trains out of Sanford MMA, my personal favorite. So About the reach, I actually, Liam, I think you showed this book also. The fight. What's the fighter book about betting?
Fightnomics.
Yeah, Fightnomics. So did you read the part about where it was like being taller doesn't matter if you don't have the reach?
Correct. It doesn't equate to much of an advantage in that case. In fact, it can be a disadvantage at a certain leverage point where your reach is insufficient.
So yeah, that book's pretty outdated because it's just kind of old, but definitely suggest reading it. Very dope, and I've learned a lot from it. So yeah, back to the fight though. Liam, why don't you start us off for this one?
Yeah, so this fight, hold on, sorry about that. Man, I'm looking at the data here. Haven't had a great time predicting these guys except fading Edmen Shabazyan, right? Dalcha, I did bet Cody Brundage there, but overall, I thought that Dalcha, he was looking good in that fight. He was kind of boxing up Cody Brundage and looked like he was the clear side. And then I felt like he was spent. I felt like he spent himself in like 3.5 minutes there. He's a very muscular guy. I think he was also cutting weight pretty significantly. He had fought it as high as 205 and 205 and 185. It's that kind of weight class gap that's really hard to bridge. Moving up and down between those, it's a huge body composition difference. So I feel like Dalcha is just one of those tweeners. If there's a 195, he might be a lot more effective as a fighter, but I feel like that's part of what holds him back. And I feel like that's also Edmen Shabazyan's fatal flaw is that his cardio is pretty poor historically, and he's fallen apart in some of his fights. Even the Derek Brunson fight, I thought he looked excellent in the beginning parts of that fight, and Derek looked like he was in a little bit of trouble, as Derek sometimes does, but Derek was able to weather the storm there and do what he does best, mix the wrestling in with the striking on the feet and really start beating him up. And I think that was the fight that kind of cemented for me that the guy doesn't have cardio. He doesn't have the heart to go the full 15. And when he starts taking damage, sometimes he checks out. Did a little bit better against Jack Hermanson, who is historically and traditionally a great finisher on the ground, a lot of ground and pound finishes in the UFC. And he was starting to look like he was going to get one. If that was a 4-round fight, I think Jack Hermanson gets that guy out of there. But it was at least a sign of some improvement that he was able to handle himself there and looked like he got off a lot of the better strikes on the feet there against Jack. So I think Edmen is probably, as dangerous or more dangerous early. I think his addition to the kicks and his speed is probably going to make the difference in those early exchanges. But if this becomes a late sloppy fight, who do I expect to try and get on top? I think Dalcha would probably try and shoot takedowns and get desperate about it. And I don't know that Edmen would have a great answer for it. So it's just not a fight that I feel compelled to bet on Edmen as a big favorite ever. But I do think he's probably going to win the fight. I think he might get a head kick off and send Dalcha back to a different regional scene or something like that. Maybe Bellator.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on Edmen also, but I'm honestly I'm a bit more confident than most others, I think. So I keep hearing yeah, he hasn't been trustworthy, but also against who has he lost, right? Derek Brunson, a much better wrestler than Dalcha in MMA, at least. Same thing with Hermanson. And then Nasruddin Imavov, not a better wrestler. And it was actually Edmen who got the takedown there, which I thought was hilarious. I was there live for that fight. And I did back Edmen. Didn't think it was so hilarious once he lost, but it was a cool takedown. Didn't expect it. Here's the thing. So when Edmen's losing, he is getting out grappled for the most part. It is something to do with his cardio too, but it's the wrestling, in my opinion, that's really making him lose these fights. Dalcha has shown that ability to an extent, but like you mentioned, the guy gets tired after 3 minutes. And it's one thing to say it after one fight or 2 fights. I usually discount that, but I mean, over a few fights now, the guy's got no cardio at all. He almost died wrestling Marcus Perez. He literally almost died. Barely made it. It was a decision win.
Noted pillow fighter.
Yo, Liam, you beat me to it. I was about to say, where Perez is now? Competitively pillow fighting. That's where he is. And we're not kidding. Liam didn't make that up. There's literal footage of Marcus Perez competitively pillow fighting. I'm pretty sure he at least won that bout. I wish we got odds on that one. That would have been cool. But yeah, I mean, I can't. I don't think Dalcha can really wrestle him. I think he can get him down maybe once or twice, but I think that's going to be it. And in terms of the striking, Dalcha has crazy power. He's got a good jab, but other than that, everything's loopy. Can he catch Edmen? For sure he can catch Edmen. It's middleweight. We're talking about 2 jacked guys, but I think Edmen's probably going to knock him out. Head kick, like you said, or just a 1-2 down the pipe. I think he's going to be the one throwing straight. He's going to be the one landing first. And I think he should run away with this. I'm still not going crazy because, we do know Edmen can't be trusted too much. I parlayed him with Ankalaev a little bit earlier on. That came out to -112, and I did that for 1.2 units. And then I also parlayed him with someone we're going to talk about soon, so I'll wait to finish that breakdown, then I'll talk about it. And we can move on. All right, so here's the fight. I'm very hyped to hear what you think, Liam, because this has been pretty crazy on Twitter. A lot of different opinions. Perrin vouching for himself like crazy. Going to be an interesting one. We've got Perrin versus Raul Rosas Jr. Perrin's 10-6-0, 29 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. And I've got him training out of Syndicate MMA. Rosas Jr. is 6-0, undefeated as a pro. He's 18 years old, 5'9". He's 2 inches taller, 11 years younger. And he's got a 67-inch reach. He's giving up 2 inches in reach. Liam. Oh, wait. For his camp, let me see what I got. So in the spring, he was actually at Syndicate also. I wonder if Perrin was there at the time. That'd be interesting. But neither guy has said anything about that as far as I know. As for his camp now, I don't know. Liam, if you know, let me know. But yeah, we can start off. Liam, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I was pretty high on Raul Rosas on Contender Series. I just thought to myself, if the UFC is going to step out on a ledge and bring in a 17-year-old fighter, are they going to do it and have him get crushed? Like they're going to make sure that he's the right guy. And I feel like he was the right guy. He's got a lot of experience fighting. You could tell when he's out there, he's not really panicked. He's doing some wild stuff. He's also got the benefit of being young. And being young, you can take some crazy hits and you can be a little wild and aggressive and figure it out. And I think so far that's what it's looked like. On the ground, he looks like he's a pretty special guy. He can move around, he can flow. He's not afraid to be underneath because he can transition, get to a better position. I feel like I liked everything I saw from him. He was extremely aggressive in that first fight, was looking for opportunities. The guy he was fighting was really difficult to submit and really tough guy. And he hung in there and he was in a really tough, shitty fight. And he did not look happy about it. So I feel like this kid is only going to get better. He's training with UFC champions. You can see that from his social media. He's been around the right people. The UFC is going to position him around the right people, around the right coaches, around people that want to help him get better because they want to have an investment in this kid. It's probably their best opportunity on the roster because everybody else is older than him, right? So they have potentially more opportunities to work with this kid, book this kid in fights down the road. And as for Perrin, if he was gone from the UFC tomorrow, probably nobody'd know except the guys that watch this show. And I say that with all love and respect. I'm one of you guys. I'm here every week, but we know who Perrin is. And the average UFC fan knows that there's this 17-year-old kid that they signed that made it into the video game already. You think Perrin's going to be in a video game? I don't think so. Give me Raul Rosas Jr. and probably by finish, maybe late. I think that Perrin's a tough guy. I think he can, keep this competitive early. I think on the feet, he might have some advantages. I think on the ground, he's going to get probably audited here a little bit. And I think that Raul Rosas Jr. will be able to do it for longer. We'll be able to scramble a little bit harder, get to more positions. And we've seen Perrin lose a lot of close decisions throughout his career. He's always been one step behind in those kind of fights. He's 10-6 for a reason, and he's been submitted as well before. So am I going to put it past this young kid who's very dynamic and getting better every day in the gym to go out there and submit a guy who's got a with all due respect, a fairly journeyman record in Perrin? I can't put that past. So I think Perrin, tough guy, going to bring the fight. I think he's going to get beat by a better man in Raul Rosas Jr.
I'm with you, brother. 100% with you. So I don't normally love the whole narrative of UFC wants this guy to win, but you got to think it makes sense. They're running a business. They put this guy into a video game at 17 years old when half their roster still isn't on the video game. Half of their ranked contenders still aren't in the video game. They like this kid. They see something in this kid. And I like Perrin. I like him a lot. I think with the right opponents, he could have a decent record in the UFC, but he's gotten tough opponents. It hasn't been easy. I think he's going to get outworked here. I think he's going to get out grappled. I know that, we don't know much about Rosas' striking, but what we do know is it is straight. He's not one of these guys who's looping his strikes like this. He's throwing it straight down the pipe. He's going to be improving rapidly. We know that about young guys. And I just don't think we're going to be on the feet for that long. I really don't. I think Perrin can stuff a shot here and there, but I really don't think he's going to do much. So I'm hyped. This person said this. Rewatch Mario Batista versus Perrin. Perrin wins this fight. That's what Perrin's been saying all week. I get it. Perrin's been saying that all week. But first of all, Batista took him down 4 times, had a 6 times. He got him down 66% of the time. Batista's a primarily striker. I know Batista has subs. I know Batista's used his wrestling. But what does the guy prefer to do? He prefers to strike. That's just how he fights. That's not Rosas Jr. Rosas Jr. is a specialist in grappling. That's what he does. And again, yes, Mando caught Rosa in a few bad situations, but in my opinion, Mando is a better submission grappler than Jay Perrin is. Maybe not a better MMA fighter. I think that's a different breakdown for a different day, but I think he's a better BJJ guy. I think Rosas Jr. is just going to out-grapple him. I think he's probably going to finish him at some point or get a decision. So I did parlay him up with who we just spoke about before. I've got Shabazyan and Rosas Jr. at -104 for 1.2 units. And then I got a little funky with it. So I was looking at like all the props. I was doing some prop shopping. And BetOnline had Rosas Jr. by TKO KO at +900. And DraftKings had it at +600. So I was like, all right, let me grab a little bit of this. Put a 0.1 unit on the BetOnline line. And I'm just thinking ground and pound TKO, right? I really like that angle. When you got a BJJ guy or a grappling heavy guy, usually their sub prop is the one that's kind of like -105 if they're a heavy favorite. But how many times do they get ground and pound TKOs? So many times, especially when they're going for a rear naked, because first you got to hit them in the head, make them open up, then you go for the choke. Sometimes you don't even have to get the choke. You just keep hitting him till the ref calls it. So that's why I kind of like it. And then on the other side, I was looking, and Perrin by KO on BetOnline was +600, but on DraftKings it was +1,000. So I hedged a little bit, put a 0.1 unit on that. I think if Perrin does win, he catches the kid. Otherwise, I don't see him winning the fight. This guy's saying, bringing up Chase Hooper. I did want to actually also say that Rosas reminds me of a better Chase Hooper, like what Chase Hooper was supposed to be. You know, like I feel like that's what was expected of him, and then he kind of flopped. I feel like Rosas is better.
Yeah, I think Chase can't really wrestle so good. You know, he could do some of the other ancillary things, and his striking is really poor. But his ground and pound was very good coming into the UFC. And so I agree with you, man. That's a good angle. I cashed in on that before, and Chase Hooper fights him to win by KO and TKO because everybody thinks he's a grappler. That's all he can do.
Did you hit that round 3 TKO? I did not.
No, my man Clint did, but I did not hit that.
It was like +5,000. Of course, Clint hit the +5,000, of course. But we next up here, we've got, this fight I am not touching. We've got Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Chris Daukaus. Rozenstruik's 12-4-0, 34 years old, 6'2" at the 78-inch reach, and he's training out of American Top Team. On the other side, Daukaus is 12-5-0, 33 years old, 1 year younger, 6'3". Okay, let me say this real quick. Rozenstruik's not 6'2". Let's be real here. UFC for some reason still hasn't fixed this, but we're not blind. He's 6 feet at best. I think he's like 5'11". But back to this. 6'3" for Daukaus, 76-inch reach. He's got a 2-inch reach disadvantage. He's training out of Martinez BJJ. I'll start this one off. So first off, I'll admit I thought Kyle Daukaus was the better brother because, you know, there's always a B side and A side on with siblings most of the time. Yeah, I don't know anymore. There might not be an A side here, honestly, but yeah, I'm not going to bet this fight. I actually have no read here. I can't say I'm confident one way or the other. I don't like either guy, really. I don't bet on either guy. I bet against them most of the time. Both, like, Rozenstruik is just low output. One of these guys always looking for a counter. I don't like that. Like I said before, I'm looking for guys to lead the exchanges, not be following. And yeah, I'm just not going to bet on a guy where I have to sit there and wait for him to get a knockout. I'd bet his knockout prop if it was nice, but it's not. It's like, I think it's like -100, something like that. -105, Rozenstruik by knockout. There's nothing there. And then Daukaus, like, he's fast, yeah. And like normally you could say he's underweight for a heavyweight, right? But like even if he weighs less than Rozenstruik here, he's going to be bigger. So maybe that won't matter so much. I think he's chinny. I think he can get chinned. I think he's probably going to get caught. If you put a gun to my head and said, Mike, bet this, I'd bet Rozenstruik, but I'm not going to touch it. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, this is a tale of two fighters for me. I have never gotten a bet right on a Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight. I bet him against Curtis Blades. And that one actually looked sharp in retrospect because he rocked him at one point. He like blasted his eye, but then Curtis just was able to take him down at will. So basically, the damage kind of went to Rozenstruik there. He does have what I like to call that death touch. He touches people. And when Jairzinho touches people, as Jeremy Stevens says, they don't fucking move. He punched a hole in Alistair Overeem's face. People who haven't seen that, go back and watch it. It's one of the most harrowing things you'll see in MMA, where Alistair Overeem has a face and then he gets punched. He comes back up. He has less of a face. It's insane. Either way, I think in this spot, Daukaus has been the opposite for me. He's been a money train. I bet Daukaus all the way on his rise up. And then I only bet him for 1 unit against Derek Lewis because I was like, I have a sneaky suspicion this could go off the rails. And you look at the guys that have taken out Daukaus historically, they're big power punchers who can outlast him, right? Because he's pretty fast and he's dynamic and he can move around. But if you can hit him really hard and like line him up, he can get blasted. He's keeping his chin on the line. He's trying to throw. He's trying to be aggressive and come forward and hit people. And he's trying to throw out a good volume too. If you don't answer when he's throwing, he will knock you out. He'll just throw 50 strikes and just overwhelm you before you can get off. But I think the problem is Rozenstruik is one of these guys who is waiting for you to throw so he can counter. And a lot of guys don't want to throw against him. Maybe after getting knocked out a couple of times, Daukaus won't want to throw against him. I think if Daukaus is wise here, he comes out, looks for a takedown, and gets on top. He's one of the few heavyweights that knows how to grapple. He could probably make it look easy. If he goes out here and tries to strike, it's going to get dicey real fast. And I, like you, have a suspicion he's going to get brutally knocked out. So I think Rozenstruik is.
Froze up a little bit, brother.
I said if Daukaus mixes in the grappling, I think he could have success. But if he doesn't do that, I think he's getting chinned. So I think violence is probably the answer here. I don't see this going 15 minutes by any regard.
Yeah, violence definitely makes sense to me. I was actually going to ask you if you thought he could wrestle here. I know he has a black belt. He hasn't used it a single damn time in the UFC so far. I guess he hasn't even gotten a chance to. Most of his fights end very fast. But we can move right along to our next fight. And the people's main event, honestly, really easily the people's main event. I cannot wait for this one. We've got Bryce Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria. Mitchell is... Oh.
You're good. Go ahead, buddy.
Freezing up a little, but all right. Yeah, so Mitchell, 15-0, undefeated as a pro, 28 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. And I honestly don't know where he trains, so I'm not going to say. It says Barada MMA. I think he might train with TJ Brown. Maybe he's at Westside. Topuria on the other side, he's 12-0, 25 years old. He's 3 years younger. 5'7", he's 3 inches shorter with a 69-inch reach. He's giving up 1 inch in reach. And I believe he's at Clement Club. He also trains in Spain. I don't know exactly where. But Liam, if you're not frozen, why don't you start us off, man?
Yeah, let's see how we can do here. I think that this is one of the most fascinating fights on the card. Ilia Topuria, when he came into the UFC, I kind of thought that fight against Yusuf Zalal showed a little bit of vulnerability. But then you saw how he handled subsequent challenges, and he looked like the real deal. He's just extremely dangerous on the feet. He hits very hard. He obviously throws with a lot of bad intentions. He mixes up punches to the body, which not a lot of people do in MMA. And the guys that do it, a lot of times they're throwing a jab. They're trying not to commit too much because it opens you up to damage coming back. He did get absolutely met with a shin to the face for his troubles. But when the guy is able to get off on those shots, they're devastating. And, the reason he got that hurt is because he froze him with a body shot and then was able to just take a free shot to the chin. And here, this is probably the most dangerous fight for Bryce Mitchell in the UFC. But people also said the same thing about the Edson Barboza fight. Granted, Edson a lot different in terms of the stage of his career, but people said that about the Edson fight. And then Edson got dropped like 30 seconds in and never had a competitive second in the fight. So that was the one thing that just made me think, man, Bryce Mitchell might be a little bit better than people give him credit for. Because all the talk that week was about how Edson Barboza is so much more credentialed and he's so much more experienced and look how good he is and he's so talented. And he never had a chance in that fight, never a hope nor a prayer. So it just seems like Bryce Mitchell has got a lot of physicality. He's a strong guy. He knows how to wrestle and grapple, and he's a mean son of a bitch. I don't think you're going to just get one over on him easy. I think he's going to bring a lot of toughness, grit, and durability. But the one thing is, early going here, I think Ilia is the more talented guy. I think he's a little bit more athletic. I think he's a little more dynamic. I think he might be able to get on top and get takedowns, run Bryce Mitchell through the series, and test his defense. But if he's able to answer that call, I think Bryce Mitchell will be able to potentially outlast him in the cardio department and go through more of these scrambles and go through more of these tough position changes. And if that's the case, I do think he could break him late and win this fight. So I think Bryce Mitchell is a live underdog. I haven't bet this fight yet, but it's something I'm keeping an eye on because it seems like a lot of people are high on Ilia in this spot. I don't blame him. He's a very talented prospect. If he wins here in dominant fashion, line's probably gone for a long time. But I also think that, Bryce Mitchell at plus money might be a thing of the past if he goes out there and ragdolls Ilia Topuria in the later going, which I think is possible here, just because Bryce has seemed like he's built for the full 15 minutes in the fights that I've seen in the UFC, grappling hard for the full 15 minutes. And Ilia, a lot of these recent fights have been on the feet, so he hasn't been tested as much in that grappling cardio, which is where I think ultimately he's going to have some questions still to answer.
Yeah, so I'm high on Ilia. I'm one of those guys. I've been high on him the whole time. After I taped him for Zalawa, I was like, I love this guy. Remember, he came in on short notice for that fight. I don't remember how short notice, and I also heard he was sick, but I don't know for sure about that one. Yeah, I think he's the better striker. I think that's really important to note. You look at the Barbosa fight. I did bet Barbosa there. I was very confident, honestly. I was like, look, he's the way better striker. And Mitchell drops him, 3 minutes in the fight? That said, I feel like that's in everybody's mind. But, if you continue to watch that fight, Mitchell wasn't having that same striking success afterwards on the feet. That wasn't the case. If anything, Barbosa was a little better on the feet going forward. It was just Mitchell didn't let that happen. He just brought him down and dominated. He was very dominant, extremely impressive. And, at this point, I wouldn't bet against him in, with 95% of the featherweight roster. But Topuria is in that 5% for me. I think that he has the wrestling and the grappling to deal with it defensively. I don't know if he'll get takedowns. I think if anything, maybe it'll be Mitchell first, Ilia getting up and then working through it. But yeah, I think Ilia is just going to be better on the feet. And if you have two guys who are going to cancel out the grappling, which I think will probably happen, and we're on the feet, I got to favor Ilia. And then even if we're in the grappling exchanges, I think Ilia can find that top control. I think he can out scramble. It's going to be really interesting. I'm extremely excited to watch, and I'm not going to bet more than 2 units on Ilia, which is what I already did at minus 155. But yeah, I think Mitchell obviously is live. You can't say he's not. The guy's really good, but I like Ilia here, I think. Either way, I think we see one of these guys challenge for the title next year, in my opinion.
I agree.
All right. So for this next fight, all right, this is another one that has Twitter split. We've got Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Darren Till is 18-4-1. He is 29 years old, 6 feet tall with a 75-inch reach, and he's right now at Bangtao MMA and Tiger Muay Thai. Looks like he's going back and forth over there. Dricus is 17-2-0, 28 years old. He's 1 year younger, 6 feet 1. He's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 76-inch reach. He's got a 1 inch reach advantage, and he's training out of Team CIT. So he's training with a 125-pounder over there. I'm just kidding. He's probably got someone his size. Who knows? But I guess I'm starting this one off, and I am on Darren Till. I did play him for 2 units. I played him at, let me tell you guys, I played him at plus 163. He's now at plus 160, I believe. It's been going back and forth over there. Look, so for his last fight for Dricus, I actually backed Dricus originally. And then I taped it a little more. And I was like, no, I'm hedging out. I bet Brad Tavares, and I was hedged out of that fight. At first, I thought I was like a genius. I was like, look at this. Tavares is winning this fight. Dricus is no good. He's already exhausted. And then, even though he was exhausted, he still outstruck Tavares. He still looked like he was the guy who has more in him. He looked dead, but he was the one with more output. He was the one doing more work. I thought that was impressive, but he still did all the same weird stuff. Like that flurry he does when he's flying forward to hit the distance. Like he's just like this. Like sticks his head out. Like he's going to get hit eventually. Is it going to be Till? I think it's possible it's going to be Till. That's why I bet him. But he's going to get caught eventually. I think that Dricus is great. He's just very weird, very sloppy. Not sloppy. Very like unique, very unique. He does have wrestling, but I don't think it's like the other guys like Brunson who have used it on Darren Till. Will he get him down? Maybe. Will he control him? In my opinion, no. Like Darren Till, I think it's like a 70-something% takedown defense, and that's like before. And I believe he's been really training that stuff. So 78% takedown defense for Till. And I think he's been training that a lot. Bang Tao, it's actually run by the ex-wrestling coach at Tiger Muay Thai. So, they're training takedown defense over there. Tiger Muay Thai, I know they train takedown defense. Look at the guys coming out of there. Peter Yan, Yaroslav Amosov. Maybe Peter Yan's not the best example. Aljamain took his number, but still, I think it's a really good.
New York boys will always teach you how to wrestle. Make no mistake.
I'm a huge Peter Yan fan, but I got to admit, man, Aljo got him there. But yeah, so I'm on Till. I think he can outwork Du Plessis over here for a decision win. I guess there's issues with the output, right? You would think maybe Du Plessis going to outwork him with the output, but I think it's going to be Till landing the better shots. I think he's going to be able to move a lot, make Du Plessis miss, because like I said, he's doing these weird flurries. Like when he's not doing those flurries, he looks pretty damn good in the striking, but he does those flurries like 90% of the time. So I do think Till is very live to catch him. I think Till will probably win a decision, but yeah, I like the dog here. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, this is a tricky one for me. Historically, I have faded Darren Till on a number of occasions, and my favorite bet ever is Derek Brunson to win by submission against Darren Till plus 2,900. I'll take that one to my grave with me. That was one of my favorite bets ever. But on the other hand, right, it's starting to be a little bit of recency bias in the sense that Darren Till isn't around. It's harder to make evaluations of him that are clear. Does look like he's working hard. He's traveled out of his comfort zone. If he was in Liverpool right now, I would not be interested in betting him for sure. But he has gone around and tried to get out of his comfort zone. I feel like his comfort zone was not good. We saw what the limitations were. I'm reading in the chat as well. It did seem to me like despite the fact that he's doing all this work, he is retaining a layer of body fat, which I think is what MMA Jesus is mentioning here. A little bit concerning, mildly concerning. And then when you look at Dricus, he looks like he's cut from stone. The guy has an incredible physique. And I identified 3 prospects I really liked at middleweight when they first came to the UFC, and I've tried to like ride their wave to this point. Dricus Du Plessis was one of them. Nasruddin Imavov was another, and Andre Muniz. Those were my 3 guys. And I feel like this
wondering
is a
if you would say Muniz, bro. That's mine, but sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I love it. And Muniz, I think his ground game is incredible. I think people still sleep on exactly how good he is. They thought Erik Anders was like a lock to get submitted by Kyle Daukaus because he lost to one of the best black belts in the UFC. But in any case, I think that this is the kind of fight that's make or break for Darren Till. He's really got to get himself back on track, and they didn't do him any favors. They didn't give him an easy, return fight. This is a guy who's very powerful. He's got power in his hands. He can throw devastating kicks both to the body and the legs. And then you look at his submission game, it's really impressive. And he hasn't brought it out much in the UFC. I thought he was going to finish Brad Tavares, tell you the truth. I bet the fight not to go the distance. I bet Dricus at plus money there. And I ended up losing money on that spot because the fight not to go the distance was what I hammered at minus 108. I was like, it's a Dricus fight. It's ending inside the distance. I feel like this is the kind of fight where I don't want to assume somebody's going to get finished. Darren Till has slowed down a lot of fights. He keeps it up on the feet. I think that if this fight gets, dirty, grimy, I feel like those are the fights that Darren Till just quits. And like that Derek Brunson, and I couldn't believe it as I was watching it because he rocked him. He hit him with big punches. My man was like, submitted him. It was ridiculous. That's a completely clownish way to get finished. but it's not a chalk price. It's an underdog price. You're buying into potential, and he has ranked wins. He's looked good in his wins before. So I feel like there's an argument for Darren Till, but for me, I'm probably just going to keep my hands off this one. Maybe look for a Dricus by sub prop to be a little bit contrarian, but that's about all I would play on this.
Yeah, so you said that, so I pulled it up. Plus 600 Dricus sub on Bet Rivers. Not bad, not bad.
Wait, I might have to go see my friends at Bet Rivers and check them for that. You know,
Liam, did you say the Brunson sub was plus 4,500, or was that around?
It was plus 2,900.
Oh,
plus 2,900.
Just for the sub or with a round?
Just for the sub.
Wow, beautiful hit.
Absurd price. Absurd price.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. After Derek Brunson had Kevin Holland wrapped up in a head and arm choke for like 2.5 minutes, I was like, that's another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. What's Darren Till doing? He's a striker. Like,
yeah, wow, I can't believe that line. But the one other thing I'm looking here is the over 1.5. I'm actually pretty curious about that one. We'll see what we get on like DraftKings. I'm seeing minus 167 on Bet Rivers. I wouldn't play that. Minus 150-ish, I would probably play. I feel like we'll probably go over. You know, Dricus doesn't go the distance often. That's why I think like no one expected him to win a decision last fight. That's for sure. Like I can only imagine how many people had like Dricus decision no action, or the other way around, Tavares decision. Finish no action. But yeah, that was crazy. The over 1.5 though, I'm interested in that. I think both guys, while live for finishes, are durable. So we'll see what we get for that, but we can move on to the next one. And all right, again, I'm very hyped to hear what you think, Liam, because I'm definitely on an island here. Oh wait, no, we have the Ponzinibbio fight first. Forgot about that one. So Ponzinibbio got a new opponent in Alex Morono. I did not get to break this fight down completely, so I'm not going to give any picks. I'll break it down to the best of my ability off my memory, but I don't have like a breakdown ready. I don't know how much tape you've gotten to do, Liam, but we know these guys quite a bit, I think, by this point. So we can get right into it. We've got Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Alex Morono. Santiago is 28, 6-0. He's 36 years old, 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach, and he's at American Top Team. Morono on the other side is 22, 7-0. He's 32 years old, 5'11". He's 1 inch shorter, 72-inch reach. He's got a 1-inch reach disadvantage. And so for his gym, Topology has Gracie Barra, the Woodlands. I'm going to check once Liam's talking. I'm going to check his Instagram and see if there's something else, because I think he's somewhere else, but I don't remember. Yeah, Liam, why don't you start us off, man?
I'm pretty sure Morono coaches his own classes and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that's a lot of what he's tasked with. He like runs a clinic. He does announcing gigs as well. So like he's just all in MMA, you know. And the one thing is, man, he's younger. Every time he's shown up for a short notice fight, I felt like he looked like he was in pretty decent shape and ready to compete. You know, he's a guy that stays in the gym all the time. So I don't really love this fight for Pons. You know, I feel like Robbie Lawler, that was like a gift. You know, they're like, dude, Robbie's on his way out. Like clean up the mess here. But this is a lot more challenging. And Morono, I think he's kind of a spaz. I think sometimes he just gets blasted. Yes, MMA Jesus is saying save Sayud, Fortis MMA, absolutely. He's a Texas-based fighter. And Morono, he's a dangerous enough guy. You know, he's got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu credentials. I don't think he's going to submit Santiago Ponzinibbio, but Pons has been chin-checked before. You know, the Leech was able to get him early on in that fight. He seemed a lot more comfortable and settled into his fights a little bit more. He had a very competitive fight with Jeff Neal, who absolutely murdered my man Vicente Luque. Rest in peace. But I feel like I've liked less and less of what I've seen from Santiago over time. I feel like back in the day, my man had the most potent jab in the welterweight division. He was looking like he was on the rise. Haven't seen the same guy lately. He's 36 years of age. Feel like he's starting to age out a little bit in this welterweight conversation. And I feel like Morono, despite, you know, not being the most athletic guy on the planet, he's a pretty talented fighter. He's got a decently put together game. And unless he gets blasted here, which is possible because of his game and is keeping the chin way up in the air, I think he's just going to outvolume him and potentially take over late just by being there and doing a lot of work. You know, Morono, that's the one thing you can't accuse him of. He goes in there and does a lot of work every time for a win or a loss. And I think he can do that again here and get the win on short notice.
Yeah, so I'm not going to bet it, but I think I lean the other way. I think, you know, like you look at it.
Neither.
Makes sense. Ponzinibbio, he's had a good output also in his last 3 fights. I pulled it up. 105 against Pereira, 91 against Jeff Neal, 121 against Beza. But yeah, I do think Morono could outwork him, obviously. I don't want to bet this. Minus 180 Ponzi. I'm not interested. Can he catch Morono? Sure. Could he win a decision? Sure. But I just don't have a good read here. I don't love backing either guy. I did parlay Ponzi when he was going to fight Robbie Lawler because, I mean, come on. The guy's 40 years old. I know Ponzi's no spring chicken either, but at least he was off for a minute. Meanwhile, Robbie wasn't. He was over here fighting. So, yeah, I lean Santiago, but I have no interest to bet this fight. While we were talking, I pulled up the props. I was maybe going to say like the over 1.5, but it's totally blasted, at least on 5 dimes. It's minus 285. That's not playable. If anything, at that point, I would look for violence because I think that's live here too. Either guy could finish the other, in my opinion. But all right, we can move on to a fight that I think we are more prepared for, and I definitely have a side here. We've got Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. Paddy is 19-3-0, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach, and I believe he's at Next Gen MMA Liverpool. Jared Gordon on the other side is 19-5-0, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 68-inch reach. He's 1 inch shorter. He's given up 5 inches in reach here, and he's training at Renzo Gracie over in New York City. I actually I know that place pretty well because I used to live in the city, so that's pretty cool to me. And I did spend some time in Queens. I lived there for like 2 years. Pretty cool too. He's from Queens, but Queens represent. Yeah, I'll start this one off. I think it's my turn, and I'm going to play Jared Gordon. Zero doubt in my mind, I'm playing Jared Gordon. I'm waiting on the line now. I was originally going to do 2 units. Now I think I'm going to stick to 1 because I do recognize Paddy's danger. I do think that Gordon could be finished in this fight. I think Paddy could maybe get a sub, maybe catch the chin. You know, he's got good power. His striking is pretty good. It's nice and straight. It's not his specialty. You know, even against like Jordan Levitt, I don't think his striking looked like that much better. Like Levitt was landing front kicks to the face in that fight. Like that's not the best look. I think Jared Gordon has very good striking, at least with his hands. Maybe not the best kicker, but he does have good hands. Goes to the body really, really nice. I mean, in that Santos fight, he kept getting in that clinch and just going like this to the body. Always putting in the work. He's got that dog in him. You know, you put money on Gordon, you know he's going to fight for your bread. I bet against him in the Joe Selecki fight. I do feel that Selecki won that fight, but I'm biased, so I won't push that issue. I did bet Dawson against him as well. The thing is, I know that Paddy's supposed to have a similar game to both those guys, but I don't think he does. I think he's very different. Like, I know he's a grapple-heavy dude, but he's not really wrestling often. Like, he used a judo throw, I think, once in the UFC, and he's got one, I think it was like a double or a single. But other than that, I don't think he has much else. He hasn't been doing it, at least. I know his fights haven't lasted that long, so, we don't have that much info yet, right? But I just think that Jared should be able to survive here. I didn't know this. I think it was Wheezy or Brady on the Stat Diggers who said this, but Gordon is 6-0 in decisions in the UFC, which I thought was a pretty cool stat. I didn't realize that. But yeah, I like Gordon here. I think he should be able to just survive the onslaught from Paddy in the beginning and then just outwork him. I think it's going to be a decision win for Jared Gordon. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, so we're going to have a little dissension here, my man. I haven't been, the all in on Paddy guy. I'm not the person selling that, Paddy's the next big thing in the lightweight division or something like this. And I think there's still a lot that he's yet to prove, but I do think that in some ways this fight sets up for him. And I'll explain why. I actually really like Jared Gordon. And as a matter of fact, I bet him in that fight against Joe Selecki. I thought, it was a very close fight. I thought it was going to come down to a close decision. I got the underdog price that I was looking for, so I fired there, but it was a close decision. I also had a sprinkle on the plus 240 decision prop there because Jared Gordon, he's a very talented guy. He's a Renzo Gracie guy. Me too. Not the same place in New York, but Renzo Gracie from New York, so stand up. But I also think that when you look at his career, Jared has excelled at 145, but he just can't make the weight. He shows up at 146.5. He shows up at 148. He's a beast at 145, but he's probably built for 150. that in-between stage. And at 155, there's just a lot of guys that cut tons of weight, and they're huge. So that's where he struggled. You look at long, tall, big guys like Charles Oliveira, just beat him up in the clinch because he was hitting him from far away. And like Jared's style, it's tight, it's compact, it's very up close. And Joe Selecki's an uncomfortable striker. So I felt like he gave him those opportunities to get in close and try and touch him up. And also, he's not afraid to grapple, right? So he's not afraid to get in there. But then a big guy like Grant Dawson, who's got a lot of physical strength, was able to just grab a hold of him and get on top. I think that the work Paddy does with guys like J-Flow, Judo, and these kind of things, it does pay dividends. I do think that he's shown that kind of scramble ability, that flow, and not getting as tired in these fights when they start to get grapple heavy, when Jordan Levitt's trying to push that on him a little bit, and he was the one coming out on top, looking less fatigued from the exchanges. I feel like that's critical here, because the thing about Jared is he's a very good grappler, but everybody's grappling gets tested when they're tired. And Jared, when he's dealing with these big bodies, when he's got guys on top of him that are wrenching on him, that are on the back, that are pulling on, he starts to fatigue really bad. And I think it's because of the size differential. So for me, I think the over is not a terrible look here. I have a feeling Paddy's going to get this done late, or maybe take a decision himself. I feel like Jared's a tough guy. He's not going to be easy to put away. But the one other thing I'll mention is 4 knockout losses for Jared Gordon, 1 loss by submission. All of his career losses have been inside the distance. And the other thing I'd mention is just that Paddy, he's a guy that's typically finishing guys in the first and the second round. So I think that's what a lot of people are going to look at here. But I also think Jared Gordon's tough as nails. The Charles Oliveira fight is kind of an outlier. And that's like the most beautiful knockout of all time. Go back and watch it. It's like the prettiest combination. He's like flowing around and moving, hits him with like 50 shots that he never saw coming. But I also think that Jared Gordon, he's a tough guy. He's a tough customer. It took Neto BJJ wearing on him to finally get him out of there. And I do think that what I saw from Paddy in his last fight is even if he faces a little adversity, early, he's willing to go through that push and find the finish. Because that's the other thing is a lot of guys would have been complacent to get back on top and try and ride it out. He was looking to finish him and twerk on his head afterwards. I feel like Paddy, till the bitter end, is going to try and finish you. So that's what I like about him.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to play any overs. In that fight, I played the over 1.5, and it was my most confident play of the card, like Jordan Levitt versus Paddy Pimblett over 1.5. And oh my God, I almost had a heart attack like 20 times. I ended up hitting by, I think, 20 seconds. He ended up submitting him 20 seconds later. Crazy. That's why I'm not touching any totals in this fight, because like you said, Paddy comes in to every one of these fights like with some kind of beef. He just wants to kill these guys. And also with the weight cutting thing, like Jared Gordon, you're right. Like he can't hit 145. He keeps coming up. Meanwhile, Paddy's over here walking around at 265 pounds and then dropping down. Okay, he's doing just fine. So he's going to be big. He's big every time. That's why I'm not going over 1 unit anymore. Definitely recognizing the danger. But I do think that Jared is very live here as well. So plus 217, I think I'm going to get something even better. So definitely going to hit something over there. But we can move on to our main event. I'm so sad we lost Jiri Glover too, man. I know you had Jiri also in the last fight. Gave me a heart attack. That fight gave me a heart attack. I was watching. I was like, damn, we're losing. And then Jiri pulls it off.
I had so much coin on Jiri that night, dude. So much coin. I had a lot of coin on Jiri for this fight. I'll tell you the truth. The fight's going away now. It's probably never coming back. But I had a gang of money. One of the bigger bets I've ever made in MMA on Jiri for the rematch. So unfortunate. I had it at minus 185 too when it opened, and I think it had gone over minus 200. Mm-hmm. I think it was going to keep trending in that direction.
You're probably right. I can't believe we're not getting it. It's so whack. But we'll see. We'll get a new champion here, either a returning or a brand new. We've got Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. Jan is 29-9-0, 39 years old. Wow, I can't believe he's almost 40. That's crazy. 6'2", 78-inch reach. And for his camp, I can't pronounce this. He's in Poland. I believe he's in Poland, at least based off of his Instagram. Ankalaev on the other side is 18-1-0, 30 years old. He's 9 years younger. 6'3", he's 1 inch taller, 75-inch reach. He's given up 3 inches in reach. And I believe he's at Goritz. I also can't tell. He's in Russia. I can't tell exactly what camp. But Liam, start us off for the main event, man.
this is a tricky one, man, because Magomed Ankalaev, I've been extremely high on him, but he's definitely made me sweat out a couple of these fights, made him a little bit more competitive than I thought. I lost a gang of money on him not finishing Thiago Santos. I was stunned by that result. Thought he was going to clean him up pretty easily, but he doesn't really bring the fight to somebody. He'll let you bring the fight to him. If you're high on Cutelaba, he will beat the hell out of you as many times as you want him to. But the other thing is, like, he's not just going to chase you down and beat you up. He's not really that mean a dude. I feel like he's just out there. He's technical. He's very smart. He's dangerous, but he's not extremely aggressive. He's a little bit passive at times. And I think that could work against you, against somebody like Blachowicz, who is a pretty competent kickboxer in his own right. If you give him a slow, even-paced kickboxing match, I feel like that's his best chance to win any fight. Whereas if you really put him under a lot of pressure and duress and try and take him down and threaten him in those positions, I feel like that would put his back to the wall a lot more. And we saw when Glover Teixeira did that, he made me a huge bag because he's got a lot of pressure. He's not afraid to step in there, throw hooks in the pocket. And that was the other thing. I said, don't be surprised if Glover Teixeira boxes this guy up, because a lot of guys stand on the outside with him, like Israel Adesanya did, and he cost me a bag there. So I'll tell you about the ones I win. I'll tell you about the ones I lose. I thought Izzy was going to clean this guy up easily. I was like, he's so much faster. He's got the length, the kicks, and anytime I bet on Izzy, he falls apart. So it's just it's a habit at this point. But anyways, I feel like what I've learned about Blachowicz over time is that if you implement a grappling heavy game plan, you can definitely beat this guy, and you can make it look easy at times. That was pretty elementary for our guy Glover Teixeira, right? It was a route. Whereas, Ankalaev, I feel like he's capable of that. If he decides to go out there and make this a grappling clinic, I don't think it's going to be, he's 10 levels above Blachowicz. I just think he's younger, he's fresher, he could do it for longer, and he's a little bit more comfortable doing it. But Blachowicz, that brown belt he has is it's not something to be trifled with. He will attack you if you come in out of position. And Ankalaev, that's the one vulnerability he has shown as well, is that he can be submitted. He's not the most comfortable guy on the ground. So I think this is a really fascinating main event. At first I was all in on Ankalaev. But now I'm going to wait and see how this market plays out a little bit. I feel like people are very bullish on him. He's been a favorite in every UFC fight. He only failed to deliver in his first UFC fight, which is like octagon jitters for everybody, right? So you kind of give that a pass. But it's also, Jan Blachowicz has played spoiler a lot. I think he's by the numbers, probably a top 5 underdog in the history of the UFC, just on profitability. And I've hit him in this range before on multiple occasions. I did it against Dominic Reyes. I remember plus 205. One of the best bets, again, that I've ever made. And it was just because there was a lot of recency bias in that spot saying this guy's the goods. But Jan Blachowicz, everybody doesn't want to give him any credit for the Rakic fight, but it was a competitive fight up to that point. Rakic wasn't just having his lunch. Rakic is the other young guy that at the beginning of the year, I said Rakic is going to fight for the title. That was my opinion. So I feel like Rakic came close, got hurt, unfortunate circumstance, but it showed that he's still fighting on the level. If you give him a striking match, I feel like it's going to play out a little bit closer to plus 200. But the one problem that I have with backing Jan Blachowicz is he's over that threshold. We talked about Fightnomics, right? 38 years of age. That's when guys start getting knocked out at a disproportionate rate. And Jan Blachowicz, he wasn't above getting knocked out in his younger days. He's been finished by guys before. Thiago Santos sent this guy packing up with the body shots as well. This guy Ankalaev, I said before, he's not the meanest guy in the world. He's not the most aggressive guy. When he hits people, they get finished sometimes. He hits people really hard. So I think especially you watch his regional fights, he was a much more lethal guy back then before he got submitted by Paul Craig and started to be a little bit more hesitant. Our guy would just go out there and kill people. So I think Ankalaev at any stage could bring that back out. His confidence is probably at an all-time high, and I got to favor him to win this fight, but I'm not comfortable backing him at minus 300 here against a former champion that's got real skills in all positions.
You want to talk about bad bets? I bet Ion Cutelaba the second time against Ankalaev. Why? I can't tell you. I can't tell you why. I don't know. Probably one of my worst bets ever. It was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. I don't know what I was thinking. But CT over here saying this is what I've been thinking about. I really hope Jamal Hill gets over here soon, fights for the belt. We need some excitement. But yeah, I think Ankalaev's probably going to win. like you said, the line's getting a bit out of hand. It's like minus 280 on DraftKings, minus 255 on Bet Online. I think you could still work with that, but we're getting a bit out of hand. You know, you have to respect Jan Blachowicz. 39 years old or not, he's been putting it together. Did a good job, got the title, right? I bet Dominic Reyes against him as well. Kind of fell into that trap of Dominic should be champion, right? He should have beat John Jones. And I think, honestly, the worst thing that ever happened to Dominic Reyes is him almost beating John Jones, because that hasn't left his damn head. He still talks about it. He still says, if I would have gotten that win. I think that's a big thing behind why he's been flying down the drain. You know, he just can't get past that. So that was an important moment for me. I think Jan is a really good striker, really good counter striker. Obviously has big power, that big Polish power. Can he find the chin of Magomed? Sure. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it happen to Magomed, but Jan can hurt anybody, in my opinion. I think he can finish anybody. I think Magomed is going to be able to hang on the feet. And if anyone gets uncomfortable and wants to wrestle, I think it's going to be Ankalaev who could do it. I don't see Blachowicz really taking him down. I know Krylov took him down and actually controlled him, but I think Krylov's pretty good. And I think he's a good wrestler. I know that Blachowicz, that's not exactly his game. He's not a wrestler. Can he do it? Yeah. Defended his title against Izzy with his grappling, but I bet Izzy there too, Liam. But yeah, I think that Magomed should win here. The one prop that has my attention kind of is the Magomed by submission. I know it's not his path. He literally never got a sub in 15 fights, but he's going to be on the ground. In my opinion, I think he's going to get to the ground. I think he's going to want to bring it there. And Jan, he's been subbed twice. Of course, one of those times was by Glover Teixeira, who I think is a much better submission artist than Magomed. It's not even close, but they're giving us plus 1,500 on FanDuel, and it's just really calling my name. What do you think of that, Liam?
Dude, he went out pretty soft against our guy Glover Teixeira as well. I'll tell you the truth, man. You know, there's been guys who've given harder goes in a local grappling tournament than that. But what I will say is, you know, sometimes when you're done, you're done. And I believe he was injured there. I think he was also just in a bad spot. He's like, I'm under this guy. He's a black belt. What am I doing here? That's my best Jan Blachowicz. Sorry, guys. Anyways, I think, you know, this is the kind of fight, though, where if he's going to get one, it could be this spot. You know, you don't want to miss the chance. I will say it's kind of suspicious almost how low it is because he's never gotten it. You know, that does make me think, maybe it is going to be this time, you know. But it is also kind of like that trap line where you're like, yeah, am I getting trapped by the number here? I feel like as long as you cover yourself on the ITD or you cover yourself on the money line, like however you're making an investment strategy, I always think like, I want to cover my bases here in case it goes mostly how I think, but just not quite. And how many I had Paul Craig the night he got a submission win that was a TKO when they ruled it officially over Jamal Hill. He broke his arm with an armbar and didn't get the money. So those are the kind of things that you worry about. So inside the distance as a base play, maybe sprinkle on the sub. I can get on board with that.
Yeah, ITD is plus 110 is the best you can get on Bet Online. I don't hate it. I'm just nervous about, bless you, Liam. I'm just nervous because I don't know. I feel like Blachowicz is just tough. I know we've seen him finish plenty, but I just feel like he's tough. I think he's going to be rejuvenated here. He was so excited when he got off that plane and found out. I mean, obviously he's going to be hyped, but he was like, yo, I feel like he's really going to come in here. It's not like it's a new opponent. He's not fighting Glover on short notice. He's fighting a guy he prepared for. Yeah, I don't know. I'm on Ankalaev, but I would definitely be careful. What I did was I parlayed him earlier on when he was minus 240. I parlayed him with our guy Santiago, so that is gone. It's now a 1.3 unit bet at that minus 240 line on Ankalaev. And then I parlayed him with Edmen. That came out to 112, and I played that for 1.2 units. And I'm not going to stake more than that. 2.5 unit stake is good enough for me. Maybe I'll get to that prop, a little sprinkle, 0.1 unit, but nothing more than that.
I don't blame you, man. I actually think that this is a comparatively tricky card for betting relative to last week. I thought last week had a couple of opportunities that were more glaring to me, whereas this week I'm going to have to sift through and be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more thoughtful to find more betting angles this week. But I will just say, like off the top, the golden boys that they were talking about, the guys that are, like being kind of built up, those are the kind of guys that I like for these pay-per-view offerings. So just gonna do my due diligence, make sure I check all the boxes. But yeah, I kind of like some favorites this week. I got to find my underdog to roll with.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm on so many dogs. I got to find some favorites to kind of hold me up if anything happens. But all right, guys, that's a card. We just went through UFC 282. We still got a bunch of viewers in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in and watching us. We appreciate you very much. I'm Mike. Couch Warrior Pod is my Twitter. That's where I post all my bets as soon as I make them. And my Bet MMA page. The link is, you can find the link on my YouTube channel. You can find the link on my Twitter. It's all there. And then, Liam, I'm sure they already know who you are, but why don't you tell everybody where to find you?
You're too kind, brother. Just want to say, guys, apologies for the internet connection. I've been working on it, but it's something way above my pay grade and outside my control. So apologies there. If you're interested in my fight opinions, whatever, I put out all my work for free before the fight time. Rotogrinders.com is my preview article. Preview every fight on the card. Delphi Sports, if you want access as I make the bets with the rationale, why I'm making them, oftentimes beating the closing line. Had a very good year so far and just looking to close out strong. So I'm also track third party, betmma.tips. You can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. That's Twitter, that's YouTube, Instagram as well. And just getting after it every week. I love the fights. I love talking about them. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about them with you, my brother. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for coming on, man. And speaking of Instagram, follow me at Couch Warrior Podcast on there, because ever since the whole scare with Elon, I realized that I only have a Twitter and a YouTube. So we're going to grow that Instagram page. Go like and subscribe, follow, whatever it's called. And thank you guys all for tuning in. Good luck with your bets and have a good one.